Welcome, welcome, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to the Many Hands podcast. We are back together again to talk about business and social consciousness. There's a lot going on. Current news, current events are very heavy. So sometimes we just lean toward the most important conversations. Sometimes they're business, sometimes they're social. So I'm just excited to be back with you guys again. Remember, you can find us on manyhandspodcast.com. And from there, you can provide your feedback, your questions. Today, we have a really, really great topic coming up, and we're excited to start the conversation, which is going to lead to productivity, because that's what it's all about. I am O. Ross, your host. I'm a business strategist and speaker. I'm happy to be with you today with my crew. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. It's Rio Winfrey here, actor, model, owner of Rio Fitness. Always a great time and always to get information out to you guys. Let's have a great discussion.
Hey, guys. Good to be with y'all. Antoine Watts here, co-founder of Personal Injury Professionals, also partner in Keep Calm Services. We're here to help you with your needs.
Hey, B. McKinney. What's going on, everybody? B. McKinney Brands, investor, business consultant, diversity inclusion expert. Let's talk about it.
All right. So today we're going to talk about from protest to progress. Right now there's a lot of unrest, and I'm comfortable with that. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that, but I'm comfortable with that. There's something about when change has to happen, when change is actually happening and it's uncomfortable, that's the only way that it's going to work. You can't have change in a comfortable position. That's just not how life works. Things should not go back to normal because normal wasn't working. So it'll be interesting as we put these thoughts together. Our task today is to actually put together a plan and filter it through, comb it through, have it grow, and have a presentable action plan that we can share with some of the preeminent networks that have an agenda for Black America and for the progress that's needed. People are angry, people want change, and the cost is hefty. I've noticed that there's been a decrease in some of the emotion since all 4 officers are now arrested. That have to do with the George Floyd murder. Do you guys agree that civil unrest is necessary and needed at this time?
Yes, I definitely think that it's necessary because at the end of the day, this is what is making America, they're opening their eyes. So they're being woke, so to speak. So like you said earlier, change is uncomfortable. So we needed to make America uncomfortable to open their eyes to what's going on and obviously make some pushes, some more aggressive pushes to make change.
And we, with Kaepernick 4 years ago, he started the peaceful protest. Now I believe that was the Martin phase. I think we're in the Malcolm phase now. I think, nothing did change. Nothing has changed, and it continues to get worse. So you have to have civil discourse and unrest in order to make some progress at this point. And as we all see, eyes are seeing, ears are hearing. So let's see what's next.
Mm-hmm. Hey, nothing changes if nothing changes. And when we're, we've tried being, to Antoine's point, we've tried being peaceful, and saying and expressing our concerns and expressing our feelings, and it's not working. And so, do you hear us now? Do you hear us? Because it's not only the Black Americans in this country, but it is starting to go across racial and ethnic lines, and it's bigger. I think they're in for a bigger fight than they maybe thought they were. And when you saw that the government was more willing to let cities burn than they were to just arrest 4 guys for murder, it has changed the game. And now that we've gotten those arrests, we're not stopping because this is just the beginning of the journey. I don't think that we're anywhere near where we want to be. So this is just the beginning.
And I would just excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. When you said that, you know, instead of arresting the 4 officers, they were willing to let a city burn, that just really says to me how disconnected the powers that be can be. And it just amazed me that we had to get to this point just for the conversations to start. Like we're in stages of infancy right here. We have a long way to go. And you know, let's see if we can sustain this fight.
Yeah. I mean, sustainability is, that's all we have right now. You know, we touched on the Montgomery bus boycott lasting over 365 days in order to get some progress. So it's, you know, there has to be that kind of commitment to change. So if you think about with, I was just really delving deep into the history of civil unrest. I mean, technically, North and South Korea, they're still at a ceasefire. You know, like this thing has to happen. It has to go. I'm going to pause real quick. I want you guys to jump on to that. We're going to touch on think about Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the U.S., where civil war was just very, very necessary. What do you think would be the impact?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Impact is going to be, it's going to be huge. At the same rate, like we were saying earlier, it's something necessary. I feel like that may happen, and it probably at the end of the day, if that's the case, maybe we'll see some good results. I hate that it's come to this point, but I will say this too: we are definitely starting to see people become more unified, and seeing more people educating themselves on the issues and you know, and looking out to other different resources to familiarize themselves with this fight and with this struggle. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we may be there, considering also with the current administration that we do have, which also brings that back to people getting out there and voting more at the local level and so forth. So it's kind of up in the air right now, but I can see it definitely leading toward that way.
I'm sorry, Swan, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a part of me questions the long-term commitment. Not to belabor the point, but I feel like once other countries jumped on, because now it's gone across continents. There's numerous countries in Africa, all the European countries, European Union, from Finland, everywhere. Russia even had 2 protesters that were immediately apprehended, so that didn't go far. But it's just a representation of so many nations, and I feel like after that was seen, then the support from fellow Americans became on trend.
And just to touch on that, so there is hope. I think the generations after us, I believe these guys are they're really focused in on the change itself. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said he saw a video where a man was on a street corner. He said it was a Chinese gentleman that was on a street corner, and someone walked up to him and said, "Why are you protesting? You're not even black." And the disconnect, that person was in probably their late 60s, early 70s, you know, and the Chinese gentleman was probably in his mid 30s. And he said, "This is the problem. You are the problem." See, because this is affecting someone, that someday something could affect you, that you need our help as well. So, you know, in that moment, he did say it was a great conversation between the 2 gentlemen, and they basically talked it out. And the fact that was a documented conversation, the fact that you can see generational differences, but trying to understand, that's the start. That is the start.
Yeah. I want to touch back also what O was just saying too, with I guess overall seeing how genuine people are with unifying, and I'm sure there are some, like you said, that are doing it as a trend. It's the latest thing, the latest and greatest. At the same rate, we definitely got to stay focused and keep moving forward for those that do, because anything like this, you're going to have some people that are just following suit with still a lack of understanding what's going on here. But we'll see. I think the important thing is to maintain the momentum and just keep it pushing forward. So that's what I'm interested to see over the length of time, how the momentum is. Like what you guys were saying earlier with sustainability. It's going to be so interesting to see how long and if we can continue to grow as far as unifying together to fight this fight.
And, in Orlando, we can only talk about what we see here, like what we experience here, right, as far as the protests and whatnot. And I was downtown earlier this week, and to see the vast diversity in all the protesters, and to actually see the singular message a day in and day out, everybody down at City Hall, and more people coming out. Yesterday was a mourning and restoration walk that I know, our church, our Orlando World Outreach, Pastor Tim was out there and leading that charge as well. So I do love the commitment, but like you guys, to your point, the sustainability, I'm just not sure of it. But again, we shall see.
Yeah, it's almost like a must, right? So there's I saw a call to action for a March on Washington, duplicating the one during Dr. King's time for August 28th of this year. I have to vet that to see what organization is hosting it. We're not walking into an ambush, all those kind of things. Right. Forgive me for being skeptical, but these guys know how I think. I'm a little different, a little left of center. But
she said, "Walk into an ambush."
Listen, listen. Who set this up?
This is a different. Right. Hey, this is a different time. We have to be prepared for everything.
Yeah,
right.
You can't be surprised by anything at the same rate. So no, I think we're all with you on that. You got to be aware. Your awareness, your senses are heightened at this time. So we're with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, well, I was going to say, B, speaking of the sustainability of it, I know you had some comments earlier about, like you said, the Montgomery bus boycotts were 381 days. And, that to me in itself, in that time, that was an absolute must, right? Because no one else knew how to make any change besides hit them in the pockets. Well, today that still holds true. So B, talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts were.
Yeah, we have to be able to, 381 days is a long time. And if you look at where we are today, where are we? About a month in maybe. So we have a long way to go, but I think you ultimately have to hit them in the pockets. You have to make it hurt where it hurts them most. And, I know that the mayor of LA, I think he is defunding. He's taken about $150 million from the police out there, and he's going to move it and redirect that money somewhere else to underserved communities. So we'll see what that looks like. But I think that is a great start. And not only in defunding the police, but we have to sort of tear down that system. We saw in Buffalo where a 75-year-old man was, he just kind of, he was pushed down unnecessarily by the police. And so when we're doing this and we're seeing this, the police are taking this brutality to a whole nother level. And so we have to sort of tear down that system. And whether it's tear it down by defunding, firing everybody who's there and starting from scratch, I don't know what the answer is, but what I know is it is going to take a long time.
Well, I love what some of the leaders in Atlanta were talking about with these community oversight committees, where the police and civilians work together to police the police. I think that would improve community relations. I think that could also have some other factors of, is it just on face a committee, or is it really an actionable committee that has some power? Right. But I think that would be a great start to just the dialogue going between law enforcement and community.
Yeah,
law enforcement also needs to. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Law enforcement also needs to. We need to have a better understanding of the screening process, because the screening at this point in time obviously is not where it needs to be. Like, for example, I won't say the actual department. There's a department around here a few years ago, and they were pretty much accepting any and everybody at any point, and that's scary. So you imagine how many other departments across the nation are doing the same thing, because obviously they're not too in depth if you're getting these people here. I'm talking about the evaluations, psychologically, all of that, man. Background checks, how are they really doing with those? It's scary out there.
Yeah, I think the action plan that we're going to submit, law enforcement definitely has to be on that plan. I don't know what defunding means. It's kind of interesting. I was listening to Amanda Seals earlier this week, and she said, just based on the brilliant minds that we have and some of the things that we've created, don't be afraid to deconstruct our whole philosophy on policing and rebuild what it should be, to paraphrase, right?
Right.
But because I would need to know what defunding means, you know what I mean? Because people still have to feel safe and guarded in some regard. Problem is, Black community has never benefited from that. We've never had that comfort. So, right, how does that look, and how can you retrain or recruit the proper officers without the same level of funding or the technology that they need to solve crimes, or anything.
I think that they can certainly do it with less funding. I think I've seen that police forces are overfunded. They have, in looking at the militarization of the police departments across the country, they're getting the sort of leftovers from the military. So you can see them come out with riot gear, with tanks, with all of the shields and body armor, all of those things. I don't think that there's any lack of funding. It's just how they use it and what they're doing with it. And then I also, to your point about feeling safe, I don't know who feels safe with having having the police departments. Yeah, in theory, I think having a sound police department will make you safer. But when the police department is the ones who are going in and harming people, Breonna Taylor going in on a no-knock warrant, and not announcing themselves and shooting, and killing her, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel safe.
Right. But it's more like all that is very true, but I guess I'm just challenging the vocabulary of it. Is it a reallocation of funds? What's going to be the true cost of what we want to build and how we want to police versus defund?
Right. And also that when they're redistributing those funds, like we talked about earlier on here, where's the money going to? Is it actually going to be used the way that it's meant to be, it's intended to be?
Exactly.
And what are some of the unforeseen consequences of that as well? Because we all know greed is evident in society. So we just have to hope that the funds are going where they're intended to be, and they're actually a course of action that has been well thought of,
right?
And not just a knee-jerk reaction,
right? Yeah. And then off topic, but on support, when the monies that were allocated toward COVID, a lot of that was defunded, and it was put into Betsy DeVos's educational charter school system, which many people oppose. So you have these budgets, and with the stroke of a pen, when everybody's distracted, they use these funds in a way that maybe most Americans would not agree with. The problem is, the reason why people are agreeing is because nobody's delving in and to see what's really happening and where it's really going and how it's working out. So in what we submit, I am going to insist that there is some kind of checks and balances. And as we, get our lawmakers involved and they create, fine tune these plans, it makes more sense.
And the checks and balance on multiple levels, right? Like, that's the problem I think we have is, and again, we talk about it all the time. I'm going to say it again. People worry about who's in the White House. You need to worry about who's in your courthouses. You need to worry about who your city commissioners are, your county commissioners. Yeah. You need to fill out these surveys on the census. So the money is being allocated properly to your school, your local schools, your local fire station, your local police stations. Like, we really need to look at a lot more than who's in the White House. And what people need to understand is your local politicians affect your life much more than DC.
Yeah.
And until
Don't
we
be
understand
distracted.
that, there won't be change.
Right. Don't be distracted.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, switching a little bit, we've seen a lot of imagery that's disturbing. This week, there were the college students in Atlanta that were tased. They were just going out for something to eat, got caught in the protest traffic, and they were tased. I saw the follow-up interview with the young guy, and you could see the trauma. A lady with a hole in her head that was hit with a rubber bullet.
Yeah.
That to me was crazy. I saw an older lady, a senior citizen. She is likely to lose an eye from the hit that she sustained during the protest. I believe also with a rubber bullet. What imagery, not just those, impacted you the most this recent week here?
So outside of the George Floyd,
Yeah.
outside of that, Deontay Jones, he's an influencer as well. He's part of a lot of different networks, mainly within entertainment. But I saw his post. He got hit with the rubber bullet also. I think he fractured some bones on the side of his face. So he posted pictures in the hospital, or even posted a recent one. And it's very disturbing. I also want to go back to the one you said, the lady with the hole in her head.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that one. That was another one that was disturbing. The old man bleeding from his head is disturbing. I feel like all the images that have been shown recently, all of them are disturbing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you the one that hit me. I'm sorry. The one that hit me the hardest though was an interaction between a little girl and a police officer. Little black girl. She's probably, I don't know. She couldn't be older than 5, maybe 5 or 6, maybe. I think a little bit younger. And she asked the police officer in a conversation, "Are you guys here to shoot us? Are you guys here to kill us?" You know, that's the kind of stuff that a child, one, should not have to think about, but two, that just lets you know the climate. And I applaud her parents for getting her out there and seeing the protests and understanding what it's about and explaining to her. But that conversation, when that one line, are you here to shoot us? Like, where's the safety in that? Where's the that was tough. That was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they don't see our children as children. They don't see us as human. So it's very.
See us as animals. They see us as animals. You see how we're handled out there. That shows you.
And Brian, I don't know if you sent this to me, but it was a picture of a little black kid, and it said, "When do we go from being cute to criminals?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Because that takes me back to that Mississippi Burning movie when the deputy looks at the little kid and goes, "Oh, they're so cute at that age.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame they have to grow up."
Right? It's crazy, man.
Like, that just amazes me.
Yeah, and to that end, I don't know if you guys saw the video of a little girl marching. She was probably 6, right? My kids are young, around that age, and she took her mask down and was no justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You know, to know that she is that young in the movement is, again, this is going to be a long time, everybody. This is not an overnight situation. And so I don't know, that struck me, that hit me in a certain way, because we're getting our kids involved at this point, and it's necessary.
And I want to tell you, I saw another image. I saw another image of an older white couple. And I mean, they might be, early 90s, late 90s. And they, on the back of their car, it said, "We marched for this 80 years ago. Why is it still going on?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that really put it in perspective for me. I'm like, 80 years ago. Like, they're like, "We marched for this 80 years ago."
Mm-hmm.
And we thought this would disseminate in our lifetime, and we're still at the same place, even though people tell us, "Hey, it's much better. You should be appreciative of where you are. You should be appreciative of the change." Thank you for telling me how I should feel, but allow me to do that.
And I would argue,
don't do that for me.
I would argue that the current administration has actually taken us back. So any gains that we may have made, or perceived gains that we thought we had, I think it's clear to see that we have been taken back to 60, 80 years ago.
Yeah. This may be bit bold to say, but this is what we're here for. I would say this. I feel like if we don't get everything together to where there's some changes in the administration, they're going to try to push us back to slavery days. Slowly but surely, I feel like they're doing that now, or making an attempt. So that's why it's so important to get out there, whether you start locally and then work your way up, because that's where they're trying to put us.
Yeah, it looks different, but it's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just trying to get these chains off, right? So I want to talk about the economic plan. So one thing we said was defunding, reallocating funds for the police. I want more intentional support of Black businesses and funding of Black businesses. Right now, there's more of a insurgency, even on our restaurant. One of the delivery companies asked us to like self-identify, so people know that the support is out there. That could work for you either way, right? What are some other ways that we can support economically?
I think invest. We got to invest our money, whether we're not only supporting Black businesses, putting our money in Black-owned banks. But invest in real estate, get in, to these opportunity zones that are all over the country. Find one in your city and find out how you can get in that game, because the game is being played whether you're in it or not. So why not? We talk about buying back the block. We talk about gentrification of our hood, our neighborhoods. Why not gentrify ourselves, right? Because again, if we don't do it, somebody else will do it, and we might not have control over it.
And ownership is power, right? We all watched a video this week of a very passionate young lady who spoke about how, people want to say, why are you burning down your communities? And she said, well, how is it your community when you don't own anything in it? So how are you supposed to be vested in it? So when that is the key, right? And in that same speech, she spoke about it. We had Rosewood, we had Tulsa, Black Wall Street, we had those things, and when they were built up, they were burned down because we were making progress and we were self-sustainable as a people. So so that's the thing that when you get to that point, and making sure you protect that as well. Because look, there's a lot of trickery. The right hand's over here, but the left hand's really doing a lot more over here. So, what's my man on the Weather Channel? That owns the Weather Channel. Byron Allen. When he lost his case a couple months ago, he said this sets us back to slavery time. Like, that's amazing to me. Like, he pointed that out, and it still happened.
He pointed out just before everything really popped off.
Right.
Which is crazy precursor to where we are today. Right. So I have defunding, reallocation of police funds, supporting Black businesses, Black business funding, looking at investing our money in Black-owned banks, investing in real estate, financial literacy training, I think is another big ad, and have that go from, start to finish. And because what's happening is we're not really, it's not taught, and sometimes it's not taught in our homes. So that's a big deal.
We have to, and you guys do a very good job with your children explaining to them certain things, because that's one of the things that we need to start educating our kids earlier, like you said, on the financial literacy piece. I know my parents didn't really talk to me about credit cards until I got ready to go away to college. Now, we had already had those conversations in the home, but that was a real conversation before I went to college. Don't you do this. Be careful.
Yeah. I always went to the bank with my parents like that. People actually went to branches, right?
Right.
So I always went to the bank with my parents. My mom would test our mental arithmetic as she would balance her checkbook. She was like, all right, 2 from this, 5 from that, And then you better be on point, right? But then the bigger lesson there, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You pay yourself first. What does that mean? And it makes a difference. I notice a lot of culturally, we don't want to have these conversations for some reason. I've talked to people about investing. Hey, what are you doing? And it's just to introduce them to somebody who I know is like highly qualified, not because I'm, pushing some pyramid scheme or, a network marketing, situation. It's because, hey, listen, this is great. Let's invest, create some kind of conglomerate and invest. But people shy away from the conversation. Like, I don't need a loan. I was just really I'm earnestly trying to uplift everyone, So I think right now that's about 3-4 points. And I think that offline, we're going to continue that part of the conversation, and we could publish our record and show, what we want to do. Because I think this has to be multi-layered. And I think it's important because we talked about the stamina and sustainability of the protest. It has to go on. And I want to be 100% confident that it will go on until we pressure and get what we need in order to keep the knees off our necks and breathe and live. I want to wrap with one of our questions. And you guys let me know if you're ready.
Ready as always.
Ready as always. Okay. Probably going to further impose on your sensibilities. I might apologize later or swing by for hugs. All right. Social distant hugs. But please share a story that where you've encountered racism.
Oh,
okay.
So
okay, go ahead.
I was saying, can I please go first?
You can, but Rio's got a boogie. So
Rio.
I want you to write yours down, and I want Rio to go.
Go ahead, Rio.
So mine, I've told you guys a story before. The one that stands out for me will always be, it was actually my first experience with racism up front. Leaving school, I was in Mississippi, where my dad was stationed at the time. Bus dropped us off. I'm walking home. Station wagon pulls up. White couple yelling, "Hey, little," use the N-word. Come get in the car. So I was in shock for a moment. I stopped, stared, then I took off running, and I heard the wheels, obviously skirts, they were heading in my direction. So I darted through some backwoods, made it home, crying, telling my mother. And that's where they all just broke it down for me as far as going forward, kind of what to expect. But I had that memory. It's so vivid in my head till this day. Not saying, I'm not sure if it was a scare tactic, but who knows? But it looks like they were definitely planning on kidnapping me. And if that was the case, who knows what would have happened. So that's
Rio, tell them where that happened, because that adds more context to the story.
In Mississippi.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we're in Columbus, Mississippi is where that happened. And that's in the 80s, like the late 80s. But yeah, I would never forget that. And that's just one of an abundance of stories.
Right. That sounds like the beginning of was it Jeffrey Dahmer that was eating black people?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Like, that's like, it's unbelievable. I can never hear that enough, because I want to, and I thought about reaching out to fellow moms, because once George Floyd yelled for his mama, it was a call to action for all moms. And
I saw that. I
don't know. I want to prepare my kids as much as possible without robbing them of their innocence. So that's an ongoing battle. Twan, what's your story?
So I'm gonna. This one happened 12 years ago, 2008, when President Obama, the day after the election, when he was elected in office. At this time, I'm a sales guy working Sprint, Nextel, and I'm working with these construction companies. That was my niche. I go to a meeting. I've been working on this deal for months. Finally get to meet the owner because the deal's in place. Everything's ready to go. He just needs to meet and talk. Day after the election, he walks into the conference room. He sees me. He goes, "You're the rep?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm the rep. My name's Antoine Watts." He goes, "Save it." He goes, "I bet you voted for him, didn't you?" I said, "Voted for who?" And obviously I knew what he was talking about, but I said, "Voted for who?" He said, "That communist." I said, "Well, I still know what you're talking about, but due to the elections, I'm guessing that you're talking about the new president, Barack Obama." And he's like, yeah. Deal's done. You can get out of my office. Now, this was 12 years ago. I'm 31 years old. Like, now, we all have stories of racism and how it affected us, but that right there, that was in a business dealing. Like, you want to talk about because of the color of my skin, right? He deprived me of a deal. He deprived me of opportunity. And then I never got that again, but nor did I want it again. But that, again, was in my adulthood, early 30s.
But that's mind blowing. Not surprising.
2008.
Right.
2008, people.
Right.
Like, this is
not surprising.
very unapologetic.
Yeah. I have a couple quick stories. I was a rep in Alabama, and this was 2005 to 2007. And I met one of my customers, and it's you kind of do the introduction, you go through all your you relationship building, right? It's sales. And one thing he said to me, he said, now, Real, make sure when you leave this town, because I had other customers in the area, right? So make sure when you're in this area, you leave this town, you stop at my store before you go home. Because I was about, I don't know, probably 2 hours from where I lived. And he said, because I have to make sure you get to the highway safely. Wow. Because we just took down within the last year that sign that said N-word out before sundown. Right. So this is, again, not that long ago. We're talking about 2005 to 2007. I'm going to go to 2005 because when I newly met him. And I wasn't dumb. I did stop by every time I was in his area, and I said, I'm going to hit these particular stores, and I should be back to you by 4, 5, or 6. Will you follow me to the highway? He goes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I believed, people say you believe him. I believed him.
Oh,
yeah. And you couldn't, you just can't make this stuff up. I had another incident where I was talking, I had to, talk to another one of my clients, and I brought in my manager at the time, and again in the Deep South, and he, the client conducted the meeting with his back to me. He refused to face me at the meeting.
Wow.
So the bad part is that my manager didn't defend or didn't, you're supposed to shut down the meeting. We're not going to tolerate this. We literally conducted the meeting with this man refusing to show me his face. Okay. And that was very dehumanizing and humiliating. And you just kind of.
And very telling about your management as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And you just, you kept going. We had an alliance at the over the years, and parts of it still go on. But if you have particular, because we had, reps all over the country, right? So if you went into a known racist area, we had a network of, Black reps. It wasn't many of us, so it wasn't this, use network in in simple terms. But you would call when you entered the town, and you would call when you left the town. And you would just say, hey, sis, hey, bro, I'm here. This is the exact location, latitude, longitude, right? This is the exact location. I intend to stop here, here, and here, and then get back on the highway and leave. And that's how we kept each other safe. Hey, you didn't call back. I'm sorry to disturb your meeting. Are you okay? Yeah, it just ran over, but thank you. I'll call you as soon as I hit the highway. And that was necessary in order for us to feel like we can do our jobs.
Right.
And I can go on to several more, but it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's important that people know that we're not talking about ancient history. We're talking about today. We're talking about,
and it's important. Like we're not crazy. Like, this is the thing. I would tell people certain things, and I had a conversation this week with a friend of mine, and we were talking about some things, and he's like, man, I can't believe you never shared that. And what I think some people need to understand is I don't have to tell you about every prejudice or racial encounter that I have. Mm-hmm. there are a lot of them that can be perceived as such. I always tell people I speak code. So certain things are said, I'm aware of them. It may not be racist, but it may be some racial undertones, and then, kind of keep moving. But there are many incidents that we all could speak about that have happened to us through our life. And when you tell somebody something, they're like, did you really feel that way? Did they really mean it that way? Yeah. Well, if we have to ask the question, then yeah.
Yeah.
If we have to ask that question, then yeah.
we're so brainwashed. B and I were talking, and we know a couple people who we'll just call them Black apologists, because right now is not the time to say,
Right.
hey, I know you're good, but this is my issue with those kind of people. It's stop trying to pacify. You know what I mean? Because nobody was stepping up when they needed to step up. And that to me is,
Right.
Because we're talking about people who have openly said, hey, I prefer to be around, not my own. I prefer, you know what I mean? So when they look at you funny, or when things don't come, I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm not good enough because, and I'm like,
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking about a time. I grew up in an area that was predominantly white, and so my high school, elementary, all of my early years of school were reflected that dynamic. And there used to be this chant that white kids would say, and it was funny, not funny, but it was interesting that it was one of those things where some of those friends were okay with me as long as I was sort of in my place, and they would say, "Hey, Brian, no offense," and then they would go and they would say their nonsensical chant, and it was fight the N-word and the white, and if the white don't win, we'll all jump in.
Right.
And I'm just sitting, and I had to sort of sit there and take that because, well, I wasn't in the space.
You're a little boy.
Right.
You shouldn't even have to think about what to do. Right.
And I wasn't in the space of being able to sort of stand back or fight back for that. And it was one of those things that I probably hadn't thought about in years. And it just sort of this week kind of came back to me. And I was telling, and she was like, what? I was like, yeah. And there were plenty of other, hey, B, no offense. And then you would go and tell an off-color joke. And I'm just,
we encountered that when we met early in our relationship, and we went to an event. Mm-hmm. It was a wedding, and one of the, I believe it was the bride actually. And we get there and she's like, oh yeah, I was just telling some Black jokes. I was like, we gotta go. We've got to go.
Yeah.
Well, we could jump onto another one when B, I think you were there. There was an event you and Rio were at. It was a wedding, and you and Rio walk in, and a guy looks at somebody else and said, "There's a lot of pepper in this room."
Oh yeah.
And it was like I think B, I think you said it was like 3 or 4 Black people there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, "It's a lot of pepper in this room." And it's like, wow, the fact that he felt comfortable saying that aloud, and then within earshot, right? Like. Y'all just happen to catch it.
Yeah.
But they're so comfortable. They're like, hey, could you show us the latest dance? No.
Oh.
No, no, I'm not doing the Savage Challenge. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on. Like, stop. I'm not your Sambo. It's different. Okay.
Right.
I'm not your Urban Dictionary. Don't ask me what this means. Don't ask for that. That is if you want to know, go figure it out yourself. Don't ask me. I'm not.
Right. It's very offensive. And I think that a lot of times when we're seeing, the best in people, which I'm a big advocate for,
right.
Where we're failing is not showing them the implicit biases that they are imposing on us when we're saying, I know their heart. But we have to challenge them to change some of their ideology to purify that heart, because it's not malintended sometimes. We're not saying that every single time, but it's offensive, it's rude, it's racist. And, because we're quiet about it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Right.
Because we've moved on, it doesn't mean it doesn't.
Right.
It hurts.
And I put up a post this week. I said, if you're a person that cannot understand why taking a knee and protesting is necessary, miss me with everything else, because I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And again, I go back. That couple said 80 years ago we marched for this,
mm-hmm.
and we're marching for the same thing today. That's
mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yeah. And it's hard, but again, every country has had civil unrest. Any country where anything's changed, there's been civil unrest and civil disobedience, and it's the only way to get change. This democracy, if you could even call it that, are we a democracy or are we a republic? That's a whole nother topic to get into, how else will we create change? So let's work on this economic plan and some stability and some sustainability, and move on. Fellas, as always, great conversation. I'm amazed what we talk about and what we do. Let's continue this progress. I'm happy to be your sister alongside you guys in this fight. So if anybody has any closing words, or are we out?
I'll keep it going. Stay focused, stay motivated, move differently, but keep moving.
Absolutely.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
All right. And you can find us and send your feedback and your questions and your show suggestions to manyhandspodcast.com. Hit us on the contact us page, manyhandspodcast.com. We're on Instagram and we are on Facebook. We're out. Grand opening.
Grand
closing.